Steam engines, trestles, and switchback tracks were the stars of the show in the Sacramento Mountains in New Mexico in the early 20th century. It all began in 1897. The Etty brothers began building a line in southern New Mexico to Alamogordo. Then into timber country in the Sacramento Mountains. They realized the need for timber and railroad ties, and Sacramento Mountains were a source. Before 1900, handsaws and animal hauling with horses and mules were used when logging. After 1900, the Alamogordo and Sacramento Mountain Railroad served the lumber company that managed the timber harvest in the mountains. Marcia was a logging headquarters for Alamogordo lumber beginning in 1921. It was an isolated, semi-permanent logging, sawmill, and railroad camp south of Cloudcroft. Virginia Elkhorn was born in Marcia, New Mexico. Virginia provided an oral history of her memories of Marcia and Cloudcroft to the USDA Forest Service. She lived in Marcia until age 5 in the railroad boxcar where she was born. The railroad logging company provided boxcars as living quarters to some of the families. They didn't pay rent. A logging pike could spread in many directions and over many kinds of terrain. At that time, logs were skidded to landings along the railroad spur, where they were loaded on by steam loaders onto log cars. When loading, the loader was initially positioned on the second to the last car and then began loading the last car, then working its way along the string of empties. The loader moved itself along the train by use of a drum-mounted cable which is attached via a hook to a car behind it and then winched itself backwards. When Virginia was older, she worked at the pavilion. Dances were common in Cloudcroft area. They were held in the pavilion, the Red Barn, and their family dance hall. Silent movies were shown in the railroad depot. Logging operations often used geared Shay engines in the steep grades typical of lumber country and usually handed off to more conventional rod engines to get down to the lumber mill. The first timber harvest began in its journey to the mill at the foot of the mountains via the new railway in 1900. The Alamogordo and Sacramento Mountain Railroad was in business. The lumber mill was at the foot of the Sacramento Mountains. Logs were dumped into the pond before being made into ties and yardstock. Their market extended to Chicago, Kansas, and Nebraska, also to Colorado, El Paso, and Arizona. Regional residents and tourists discovered an alternate use of the mountains, as an escape from the desert heat via the tourist cars on the railroad. High Rolls and Cloudcroft became tourist destinations using the same tracks that delivered logs to Alamogordo. Passengers from Marcia disembarked to continue the trip back to El Paso, while newly arriving visitors boarded the excursion car for a trip through the mountains. Cloudcroft Station has been rebuilt and is now a welcome center in Cloudcroft. The Mexican Canyon Trestle is one of the Sacramento Mountain's most famous historic features. It stands to remind us of a time when steam engines marked much of our travels across the country and to the mountains. In 2011, the trestle was fully restored through work and funding from many volunteers. This overlook protrudes over 30 feet over the edge to give you the best vantage point of the trestle. Come and view the trestle at the brand new vista located just west of Cloudcroft along US 82.